Hello, and welcome to something which is certainly not what you were expecting, because you probably were expecting comment response video this evening. But honestly, I looked through the comments on last week's videos, and I looked and went, there's not a lot of them. The most comments last week was on when a Q turret goes up, a little video I did, which was a outtake, really, a highlight from a Twitch stream, and that got 27 comments. So I thought, well, either people didn't find anything that interesting to comment on last week, or they're all commented out, because, of course, if we consider the UAD and the various other Queen Elizabeth videos got so many comments that I decided that basically what happened is you all commented yourselves out on the Queen Elizabeth class. And I thought, okay, Alex, be nice. It's the year of technology, and there's a couple of topics you have wandering around in your head which are just quick topics, which are not really normal full-length videos. And it's a Friday video, and you did used to do Friday videos with UAD, and you do comment response over a UAD video. And now you've broken those two things up because it's easier to do the comment response and suddenly more fulfilling in some ways to do it with the slides going through that you're talking about in the background. And the UAD stuff is now... I'm still using it for my work and research to assist me, because I can use it as a quick tool. And on a Friday evening, you will often find me live streaming my end of the week. I'm having some fun. I doubt I'm still live right now, because normally I start about 3 o'clock, and this probably coming out about 7. But normally Friday at 3 o'clock is when I call it an end to my work week. From that point onwards, if I'm writing on fun projects. I'm coming up with ideas for future projects and stuff I'm working on. Sorry, just looking at my phone. And or I'm prepping for Sunday's brew ships and the Empire Total War stream as well. I like doing the streams on Twitch. As said, the whole reason I got into naval history and doing the stuff on YouTube and doing the stuff I have been doing is because I want to try and reach as wide an audience as I can to bring them into the love of naval history. It might not be a communicable disease, but I would want to do my best to try and communicate it. I want naval history to be more infectious than any disease going. It's better for you. It's more fun. And let's be honest, if you spend all this money on books... or even this one, 1915. All gonna be in Sunday's book review show. Brew ships. You can't spend on anything bad for you. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. So, yes. Turret selection. I thought you'd have some fun. And I'm going to do, before I jump into it, a shameless book plug. So, before I start off the video, which is going to go to me in UAD with headphones or headsets on, because, you know, I don't want the sound playing, and because I've already received all sorts of copyright stuff because I let a video go through which had the background music on UAD on. I forgot, because I hadn't done that in such a long time, quite how upset YouTube gets with you. I had 14 emails. 14! All saying the same thing. This music is copyrighted. Okay. Sorry. The ad revenue for this video will be going to the copyright holders. Okay. Sorry. Oops. Anyway. So, shameless book plug. If you have got it, thank you very much. If you haven't got it, if you think you're going to enjoy something on destroyers, please do look it up. I like it. I'm its author though, so for me it's kind of like my baby. You know, it and my dogs are probably the closest things I have to that sort of scenario at the moment. And yeah, Hence the picture I have. Although it's not of one of my dogs, because getting one of my dogs to sit there so quietly while you take a photo on a white background would be something I have probably got to hire a professional photographer to do. And also buy a metric ton of biscuits to get them to do. Anyway, to turret selection and the debates it causes. And, well, welcome to where we're going to do some imagination. And please note, yes, this is a stitched together video. So, let's go to custom battle, because I need a very specific ship type if I'm going to do this particular playing around and talking about the various options. And we're going to put it to 1940. Make sure they're about that far apart, and because I am literally doing this as a test bed, we're going to do it this way. Yeah. This is going to be fun. So, can have a battleship. And this, of course, is the balanced turret formation, okay? So you've got 4 twins. Now, this is my Agincourt, or the 18-inch ship, and this is not really even the version which I think existed. I think if it was being designed and built, and I'm as certain as a historian can be without actually reading the document, without actually, how to put this, finding an actually smoking gun of a document, that Agincourt was either being built as an 18-inch battleship or was the template and the stepping up to an 18-inch battleship. I don't think she was getting triple turrets, as said before, because of the various scenarios going through. Triple turrets don't appear. 18-inch guns do. 6-gun formation appears in the Renowns, and it's been worked out already somewhere else, and that means there's some ship which has been worked on. Now, there is the possibility that somehow Agincourt did look like this. That she wasn't a 6-gun formation, that she was literally a scaled-up Queen Elizabeth class, and this is, of course, modernised for World War II along the lines of Warspite. And this pretty girl is what she would have looked like with 8 18-inch guns. And she is gorgeous. She can, as you can see, do 28 knots. She has many bulkheads. She's slightly on the narrower side, which is why certain things stick out. I think in real life those bits would have been filled in. But we'll leave that to one side. And possibly they might have even filled in these bits to give her a bit of a smoother approach on the front there in the reconstruction. And before you sit there and go, well, you know, that would have cost weight. It would have cost weight. But it had also given them extra space protection for these guns. And that's useful. I think, yeah, if Agincourt had existed and had looked like this, it would have been interesting. But that's not the point of the discussion. We're talking about turrets. We're talking about the choices you can make. And really, I need a different design to do that. So, I'm going for my N3 G3 design, because I can do what I want with that. And I have to admit, I am going to make it as big as possible. I mean, it's going to have a bit of draft. I'm tempted to give it as much beam as possible as well, just, you know, to just make it fat as anything, so I can really play around with it. And this is not a ship I'm actually going to take out or do anything with, because that's not what it's for. Today it's a testing ship for me to explain the turret options. So, you have 3 scenarios which affect your turret choice, as I already mentioned. You have the size of guns you're going to use. That's going to affect your turret choice, because it's going to affect, depending on the size of ship you're prepared to build, it might be nice to have a quadruple 18 turret gun, It's lovely. That's a quadruple 18 turret gun. But if you end up with a scenario of that and that, you lose one turret, you've lost half your firepower. You have a quadruple 18-inch gun. That's one of the most powerful guns you can get. You know, you add in another sort of superimposed barbette. Both forward firing. Isn't that lovely? You've got 8 guns firing forward. There are French ships which are built like this because of the tonnage limitations, because of the size limitations imposed, because they want to get a maximum firepower forward because of being able to aim that way. But you still have the scenario that you lose one turret, you've lost both. And the odds are with that formation, if you lose one turret, you're probably going to have a damage done to the magazine, which is going to affect the other turret as well. So, size of guns, survivability of firepower is the next thing. Ideally, you want possibly, if you can get it, I have to move that back a bit. And what does this give you? This gives you the maximum survivability. It gives you 6 turrets. You have 24 guns. This is the thing about some of the American extreme designs, and we do rightly call them extreme designs. Now, the Tillman number 4 is often represented as being something which it isn't. It's represented as being something absurd, silly. Yes, it's very difficult, very complicated to make, but from a survivability of firepower perspective, having that many guns in that many turrets makes sense. If you're prepared to build something that big, if you have the infrastructure to build something that big, and it's going to be fast enough to be effective. Because here is the other factor. The other factor that affects all of this. The overall weight of your ship. Look at this vessel. You can't see it because I'm blocking the weight stats, but if I move myself down and over here, ooh, I flew. You can see, hopefully clearly, the stats. You can see the sheer amount of weight this is going to take. $56,000 tons, and all I've put in so far are the guns. Out of a maximum displacement of 66,500 tons, and I've only got a speed of 18 knots. If I bump the speed up to 23 knots, i.e. the speed of Nelson and Rodney, theoretically, I've gone up even higher. And let's be honest, with that many crew aboard, you need these sort of things, but you're going to need the best oil fire you can get. You're probably going to need the best geared turbines you can get, period, if you're going to do it. Probably forced to actually get some decent speed. Oh, you're going to need a full diesel electric system. The maximum of that. The maximum of that. The most modern armour to get the weight down, but the barbettes are going to need to be something chronic. There's no... This thing basically has to become... a mobile fortress on the sea. Now, admittedly, if we do go to the joyous things that are Nelson and Rodney and use them for some advice on what actual things might be appropriate in terms of armour scaling, we'll find that they had 14-inch armour for a 16-inch gun system. And so therefore having 22 inches on the turrets, probably not maximum. Their thing was about 16 inches, so yeah, 18-inch, take it down. Barbettes were as high as 15-inch, so put that up. Take the top down to 9 inches. That's going to affect the weight. Conning tower was between 6 and 14 inches on a 16 gun ship, so probably on an 18-inch gun ship we are talking max probably 15 and a half. Although, as you all know, I am not a fan of this at all, of these sort of things. Main belt, yeah, we'll leave it there. But we are still talking about an incredibly heavy vessel. So, now you start having to compromise, because this is the perfect ship from a firepower, turret perspective, survivability perspective. You have to go that. Well, half weight offset is now massive, so that. And you're going to need to put in a superstructure. So you're probably going to need to move this forward a tad. Give you some space. This aft a bit, to give you a bit more space aft. Put in a secondary tower. Let's see, can we get this in? No. How about this one? Yeah. And of course we need a funnel. Takes the alpha offset down to 0.6%. And we haven't even included any of the decent stuff you need. We're still pretty much overweight and we haven't included any of the decent stuff you need. So let's see. Let's start thinking through. What else do we need if we're going to make this ship survivable? Well, let's be honest, semi-auto, auto and all these things, they're not going to be viable for big guns in this period, but enhanced you probably will get. Electrical turrets, electro-hydraulic, if you're lucky. I forgot to add in this, the triple hull form. You're going to need that. Ooh, you're going to want to have the best range finders, because again, there's no point having these guns and not using them. If you're building a British ship, again, you're going to want in the best sonar to listen for torpedoes coming in for you. You're going to want radio direction fighting. You're going to want the best radar. Oh, great. Now we're up to 70,000 tons. Okay. What do I start taking off? Well, do I try by making the ship slimmer? Does that affect things? Does that reduce it down? Well, that does reduce the weight a bit. And it reduces some of the things. Let's take it down and see what we can do. Alright. But I'm still 6,000 tons overweight. If I increase the draft, does that have any effect on me that's positive? Nope. But it does make me very deep in the water. If I reduce the draft, does it have any effect on me that's positive? Not really. If I start playing around the components, what can I do? That's taken some weight off. Okay. But basically, you can guess what I'm probably going to have to do. Ship is now overweight again. Well, this is when we start having to look at creative solutions. And there are some creative solutions. Now, if I do this and keep moving it back, there's, eventually enough space for it. But we're going to have to make the vessel slightly wider for it to actually fit. And then shrink it down again. So full weight offset. It's there. We do this. Now we've spaced out all the guns, so you're going to have division between the magazines, so that gives you that survivability. And you're now on the weight, and you've now got 12 18-inch guns. Okay. And the maximum turrets you can get. But hang on. Is that really the best way to get yourself 12 18-inch turret guns? Because remember what I said about survivability of your guns? You lose one turret. Well, you lose one turret, you've lost a significant portion of your firepower. But if I, to an extent, go over the work I just did, make sure I still have my tool funnel in place, because that's always useful, and I think it's this one, isn't it, I was using? Yes, it is this one. Ooh. That is overweight now. But it is more survivable. Okay. I need to think this through, don't I? So let's start thinking it through. 12 is the most survivable. But also gives me the most issues. And, gives me the most firepower for those 12 is if I spread out evenly. That's 2,000 tons overweight. So, 3 quadruples is the win. Would seem to be the win, wouldn't it? That that would seem to be the sensible choice to go with. Move all this back. That's given me a 12. I should be happy now, shouldn't I? I should be ecstatic because I've got 12 guns. It's the most I can get on this hull, which I can build in my infrastructure. It's the most capability I can provide myself with for the right cost. But there's a problem, isn't there? Because quadruple guns come with an issue. They always have an issue. And what is their issue? The fact that a single turret, a single gun turret, and a single gun in a turret, it represents one set of problems. One likelihood of problems. Two guns, twin turret, that doubles them. Triple, quadruples the number of problems you'd like to have, because there's also the interaction issues, and there's the damage of the concussion and the firing of these guns and what it does to your ship, and what it does to the other guns within the turret. 4, 1, 2, 4. We know where this goes, don't we? We know what the next one in the ratio is in terms of numbers of problems. Because this is just a double. But to get this is double that. Because you have the problems between this one and this one. That's twice as much problems because it's two guns. 3, you have the problem with this one to this one. This one to this one. This one to this one. And all of them together. That's 4. Now this one. So you have problems with this one, 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 this one. Okay. We now got up to a 6. We've also got the problems of them all as a group. It's 8 times the problems. So yes, I've made it work, but I have signed myself up to a logistical nightmare and maintenance nightmare. It's a beautiful looking ship. It's a capable ship. But it can also only go 23 knots. And there is not much space for me to do anything else with it. I can take down the bulkheads and use that extra tonnage to get slightly more speed. But that's not really much of a help, because that's not going to be a fast battleship. It's got enough firepower that frankly it's going to scare the bejesus out of most things in the water, but it's not fast enough to be tactically called a fast battleship, i.e. fast enough that battle cruisers have to be wary of it, but aren't well armoured enough that other battleships have to be wary of it. And let's be honest, this thing is well armoured enough other battleships have to be wary of it. They do. So, what names is... It's been given the name Conqueror. I'll leave it with the name Conqueror. Now, if we exit this constructor and we go back to... ...1914, and we do it with USA. Now, in this period, yeah, that's about a good approximation of the hull. Tonnage up to the maximum. Beam down as much as I feel like I can get away with. Give me maximum engine efficiency. Let's go for 21 knots. and semi-oil, because that's what most of them were. Now, in this scenario, what guns I'm looking at? Let's be honest, I'm looking at the 13.5-inch guns for the British. Now, again, you have often a scenario of people going, well, they have 10 guns. They have this sort of layout. Standard. Put that about there. That can go to about there. Centerline guns again. Right then. Boom. Boom. Yeah, not a bad approximation of a British dreadnought of the period. Not a bad one. Now, what caliber are they currently? Because I've got, oh yeah, 42. Yeah, that'll do. So, this is your standard British layout. And you have 5 twin turrets. Why? Because of survivability. The British were not just sticking with the twin turret because they loved the twin turret and because they thought it was amazing and the be-all and end-all. They were sticking with the twin turret because it was a useful turret, it was far improvement over a single gunshot, and if you have 5, you lose a turret, you've lost 20% of your firepower. Now, I forgot to put in this coincidence fighters. Hydra again, and advanced. So let's go back to our 13.5-inch guns. And let's go for the triples. Why is it lost the fact I hadn't led it to 13.5? They are 42s. Yeah. Now, if you can do this on your weight limit and you can put them all up to triples, you would of course go, yes, I will do this. As long as you have a working triple turret that you're happy with. As long as you have that. But that's as long as you can put in the weight, and if you consider, well, we've got turbines, we've got semi-oil, we've got the best shafts you can, electro hydraulic, you've got all the best things you can put into your battleship all the time. And we're now looking at something which, all up, needs standard, is 32,000 tons. 32,000 tons. has 33,853 horsepower in terms of their engines. And you start to think of, well, hang on, where did the British battleships, which are 13.5-inch guns, match in at this point? Queen Elizabeth class, they're pretty big. But if we go back to the Iron Dukes, they're 25,000 tons standard, 29,500 tons fully loaded. If I take this down to that stat, I will just keep it down about there. I'm going to need to start reorganizing this ship, aren't I? And I can maybe make it work. But it's becoming very forward heavy, and that's going to affect its operation. Again, the smallest secondary tower available. And it's incredibly forward heavy at this point, which is going to have an effect on its capabilities. And this is a fully loaded ship. And yes, it has got a thicker armor belt than any of the ships in this period had. They were all about 12 inches on the main belt. And the conning tower was about 12 inches. And the decks were about 2.5. And they're fairly decent. The armour on the turrets, about 11 inches. Barbettes, 10 inches. And yeah, I've got it in under the weight on the game. I've got no secondary guns placed in place. If I start adding in those, things start to get slightly more interesting. That's, if I'm not mistaken, 8, and in real life they had 12, so there you go. And then we had some 3-inch guns as well, so let's put in the 3-inch guns. Singles, 2 of them. Always nice to have some single threes sitting around. It's not, they're useful, I'm told, for something. And of course, 21-inch torpedo tubes. 4 of them. Well, we're now starting to look a very different weight class than we were earlier, aren't we? And if we go down to the torpedoes, increased, so we want the full load on. They're supposed to be 21-inch torpedoes. The maximum they're giving me for me for some reason is 19-inch. I'm still not quite sure why that's the case. But you want to carry as many shells as you can for everything. And now we're definitely over that weight limit. And yeah. But we've got 15 guns. So now let's think about this. What are my options? Well, my options are one of two things, really. I can pick 2 turrets and go, right then, you I will make to twins. Which sort of gets me in underneath the weight limit, sort of. But then we have to think about that from the Royal Navy's logistic and fleet perspective. Or any Navy's logistic and fleet perspective. If you're building a couple of ships, that's fine. If you're building 5 ships and they're all going to have basically a non-standard turret arrangement in that you're going to have this and this and this, and they are part of a wider fleet that you're also going to have to support, you're setting yourself up for a lot of problems. You really are. Because now I've got to maintain those triple turrets, which will have slightly different components, slightly different needs, and slightly different requirements in terms of maintenance than those twin turrets. But let's see, if I get rid of these, I have lost 3 guns. I've gone from 13 guns to 10 guns. But I do now have another advantage. I have all the logistics I need. They're all standardized. They're all the same turret. So any crew is interchangeable with another turret crew. And I can cross-train people over the turrets. And I can use the turrets, any turret, for firing training and turret command and control training. Because they're all the same. And they're the same twin turrets as I'm already fitting in a large number of ships, and I have the survivability of 5 turrets. So this is the scenario when we play this game. As I know myself with UAD, kind of like with World of Warships, they are gameplay. Kind of like with Empire Total War. When I play that, there is gameplay going on. There is part of that scenario involved in that is playing the game and adjusting to fit the mechanics of the game versus real life. And in all these scenarios, you will often see people start questioning and going, well, why were navies not putting in as many guns and as many turrets as they could? And the answers always boil down to 1. How big a ship can you build? Can you fit that turret on it? 2. How many of that turret can you fit on that? And 3. How can you logistically sustain it? And how many of that turret can you fit on that is the survivability factor. Because I can fit 5 of these turrets here. You knock out 1 turret, I'm down 20%. If you have 4 turrets with triple, which is the other option, you knock out 1 of those turrets, you're down 25%, and you're down to 9 guns. I'm down to 8 guns from 10. I knock out 2 of your turrets, you're down to 6 guns. You knock down 2 of my turrets, I'm down to 6 guns. And I still have 3 turrets left. If we go turret for turret, which you hope you never do, because that's kind of the worst exchange you could get in terms of battleship conflict. Well, the odds are you're going to run out of turrets before I do. We often focus on the weight of fire being fired at the enemy target, and I myself am guilty of this. When I talked about the Queen Elizabeth Maximus, that could have been built instead of the Queen Elizabeth class, I was very candid that it could be 15, 16.5-inch guns, triple turrets, because the British have triple turrets designed to make it work, well, to make it work in the scenario of the game, I had to actually delete one of my triple 16.5-inch turrets and replace them with a load of 6-inch guns to spam, because this is UAD, and they've designed the metrics around originally so that you can still fight the same metrics throughout the entire game, and you start off with the pre-dreadnoughts. It's designed around a secondary... It feels to me, I haven't talked to any developers like this, but it feels to me like it's designed around, to an extent, secondary spamming. And so I did, in order for this to play the game and actually be able to win the battles against things it should be winning against on paper, anyway, I took out one of the turrets and replaced it with 6-inch guns to spam. It makes sense in this game. In real life, you would never take out a primary turret to replace it with secondaries under World War I conditions. World War II conditions, maybe, for air defense, etc. But then the balance has changed. The balance of need has changed. In World War I, you're talking about the long-range fire plan. And again, that's where extra turrets can help you, because that's extra points of bearing on your opponent. Extra angles. Having 15, 16.5-inch guns does a lot of good for your confidence. But there's a reason the Queen Elizabeth class are this. There is a reason they are like this. And it's not for the good of my health. It's not because the Royal Navy was obsessed with keeping twin turrets and not going for the triple turrets, but because they wanted to build them as quickly as possible. And the triple turret was being tested, I'm 100% sure of that at the time, but the twin turret was available, was working. Then the discussion becomes, do you go for 8 or do you go for 10 guns? Well, I've got geared steam turbines, and I've got the best oil boilers you can get in the ship. So I've basically gone for small tube boilers and geared steam turbines in order to get that speed. But they didn't have geared turbines. The Queen Elizabeth class have regular turbines. And there you go. To try and get the speed, well, in this case, I'm trying to push something which is a lot heavier and a lot more solidly armed and has all sorts of things I've added into it. Hence, it displaces 40-odd thousand tons to 32 knots. But this is why, and it's still being listed as oil with small tube boilers equivalency. But if I took it down to semi-oil, you then start having to drop off speed. And this is why the Queen Elizabeth class ends up where they are. If you have those things, you can have your 10, 15-inch guns. It doesn't take up too much space, and you can get the speed you want. And that's the advantage of the technological progress that takes place. We'll take that down to 33. Right. So that's the point. When you're thinking about turret design, when you're talking through turret design and what turrets should be on a ship and how you're evaluating a battleship and its turret layout, think about all the criteria which go into selection of the turrets and layout for a ship. It's not just a case of we want to put the most guns we can possibly on the ship. It's more. It's a lot more. It has to be a lot more. So, I hope you enjoyed all that, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion of why the ships end up like they are with turret selection, why there are a lot of factors involved in what you are selecting. Because I remembered when I did do the Queen Elizabeth videos, I talked a lot about gun selection. I didn't get into as much about turret selection. And I said, well, you know, your options are a triple or a twin, really, in this time period. There are more. You can theoretically build a quadruple turret. And I remember when I did sort of some videos which I've had going on, I've gone, well, the Germans could have got a triple turret from Skoda. And I have to admit, someone did one comment which I will bring up, because someone very politely reminded me of this. And I had sort of, Nathan Okun who said this, Skoda built the guns and projectiles used by the Austro-Hungary, but the arm was made by Wittquartz, which of course was part of a massive, massive steel conglomerate. From the Austrian Museum, Military Museum testing data using Skoda AP armor piercing shells, it seems the KC armor made by Wittquartz was the best Krupp plate made by anyone through the end of World War I. Assuming the Skoda AP shells are roughly as good as the Krupp AP shells. They are, in fact, there are lots of people who thought they were actually better. And the reason I say that is it's kind of anecdotal evidence, but there were but the Italians always claimed they were hit harder by Austrian shells than the British were hit by German ones. I did add my little comment. As I understood it, there was a very close link between the two, especially in terms of metallurgical research, and that therefore, whilst a separate company, to an extent, Wittquartz can be classed as part of the Skoda industrial network, hence my phraseology, but I will look into it further. And I have gone in and looked into it further, and you're right, Nathan, you're right. And that was a comment on the 18-inch gun, Agincourt and Other Ideas video. It's one of those interesting scenarios you get into. Turret selection, gun selection, turret and your layout of your turrets, how many you're having. I've tried to really hammer home survivability is a big factor in your turret selection. And I know I'm repeating myself and stuff I've said in the video several times, but I cannot overstate it. It's a big factor in the selection process in the period. And even after it. Even in World War II. You can maybe build a ship which has more guns. It has 9 guns rather than 8, but it's on 3 turrets. Or 8 guns rather than 6, but it's on 2 turrets. And it sounds better because it's got more guns, so that's more shells in the air. But those turrets will be more complicated to maintain. And if you lose a turret, well, if it's the 8 versus the 6, you lose 1 turret, you're down to 4. They're down to 4 as well as they've lost 1 turret. You lose both turrets, 2 turrets, you're out of guns. They lose 2 turrets, they've still got 1 firing. And it's ultimately the idea you have to remember that battleships are not designed to always be fighting at their peak efficiency. They're designed to take damage and keep on fighting. In fact, that's the measure of a battleship, whether it can take damage and keep on fighting. And if we think about the warships we remember, the stories we remember of them, they're not the ships which were beautifully unharmed and just beautiful and serene. They're the ships which took damage and kept on fighting. There is a reason we think about Renown when all she got up to. There is a reason we think about Illustrious, Formidable. There is a reason we think about Warspite. There is a reason we think about the Texas. All these ships which have characters, they are battleships which do, they're battleships or they're aircraft carriers which do their job, which take the damage and keep on fighting. And that's the point of the turret layout. When you're thinking about it through, you have to think, well, hang on, how much damage can this ship take and keep on fighting? And again, if you're putting in a triple turret, yes, you can take the weight, but that's going to increase the weight you have above the waterline. It's going to be heavier objects up there. You're going to have to balance it. You're going to have to stabilize for it. And you're going to have to, more importantly, work out the buoyancy for it. To keep yourself afloat and keep yourself still fighting, even when you suffer damage. So all these are factors. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. And the question I'm going to put here is, you will see at the end of this video, this is the year of technology, the stuff that's going to be covered. You can see what's coming up, what's going to be looked at. What I'd like you to, well, consider and suggest to an extent is, like the turret one, which other topics might be good for a quick one. Occasionally on a Friday when I seem to have commented you all out, or rather I seem to have worn out your commenting. And I hope you're all having a good time. Hope you had a lovely week. Hope you will enjoy the video on Saturday, enjoyed the video on Thursday, and I hope to see you Sunday, because it's always fun to chat with you all. Especially when I can have some iron brew. Which you might have noticed I was drinking, but that's because someone very kindly brought home an extra can of iron brew from her students. Because she'd been in teaching and I'd helped them virtually. So, you know, it seemed nice, and I didn't want to waste it. It had already been out the fridge for quite a while. Take care, and thank you.